I'm Tom from Chasing Cars, and this is my new Polestar 2. I'm going to be running this electric car for the next 6 months and 10,000 kilometers to tell you what it's really like to live with, not just for a week of ordinary testing, which is what we do day to day at Chasing Cars, but for the full whack of 6 months dailying this electric car to see what it's really like to live with a non-Tesla. And I mentioned Tesla because the Polestar 2 is the first EV here in Australia to really take the fight to the Tesla Model 3, easily the most popular electric car on our market. It starts at exactly the same price, just a touch under $60,000, although this one, as I'll reveal shortly, does have a few choice options on it. The big difference, of course, is that the Polestar 2 doesn't benefit from the really awesome Tesla charging network. So what's it like to run an electric car that isn't a Model 3, to be the odd one out, to have something a little bit different? And I like the fact that it's different. It looks chic. It certainly looks like a Volvo, which is no surprise because Polestar and Volvo are very closely related within their Geely ownership structure, a Chinese company. This is built in China, much like the Australian Spec Model 3, but as we'll find out over my course of 6 months, there's still a lot of Swedish design and engineering that goes into this vehicle. So make sure to subscribe if you're interested to the Polestar 2, because I'm going to be having some comparisons, some long distance road trips, and a whole bunch of critical insights about what the Polestar 2 is really like, the good and the bad, unvarnished and independent. This is not sponsored content, it's just my opinion. But in today's video, for the introduction to my new Polestar 2 long-termer, firstly, I'll tell you what specification of car I ordered from the factory. Secondly, I will tell you a bit about my plans for the next 6 months. And finally, I'll give you some basic first impressions of my first 500 Ks of driving. But remember to hit subscribe down below the video and the notification bell. And I've also dropped some handy links if you want to build your own Polestar 2 on the configurator, download the brochure, or organize a test drive. So I was able to order this Polestar 2 from the factory, and I've done something a little bit different to what I would normally do, different to my personal vehicle and my last couple of long-termers. I've gone for the Stormtrooper spec, and I think it looks pretty cool. You can let me know down below. Snow white outside and charcoal weave tech inside. Now, we are getting more and more comments from people saying, is there a non-leather option? I personally quite like a leather interior, but I've gone for the non-leather option this time, and we'll be talking about how well that works here in Australia over the course of these 6 months. But this Polestar 2 is a long-range dual motor, 300 kilowatts of power, but that's actually only a 10 grand upgrade from the base single motor, which is fascinating. So it's got dual 150 kilowatt motors, front and rear, and then from that point, I've added 3 option packages. The Performance Pack, which gives you 20-inch wheels, manually adjustable Erlens dampers, now that's bloody difficult to do, Brembo brakes, gold calipers, and gold seatbelts too to match. Then I've gone for the Pilot package, which adds the full safety suite. You only get a basic safety suite as standard on this car. That's one way they've got it to the price of a Model 3. And then also the Plus package, things like Harman Kardon, heated memory, electric, front seats, the glass roof as well. That's definitely important, I think, for little conveniences, and a premium stereo is super important when you have to drive for 10,000 Ks in a luxury car, in my opinion. So that's how I've specified the car. What am I going to do with it? So I've taken delivery of the Polestar 2 in late January 2022. It's now very early March, so I'm going to be running this car through until winter. So I'm hoping to do a range of things with it. I'm catching the end of summer. At the moment, I'm just using it as a daily to see how this spec works day to day, but I do have some big plans. We are going to do a comparison with the Tesla Model 3 if we can get one of those vehicles out of Tesla, or if you've got one, you can always let me know down below, and we can do it that way. The other thing I want to do though is a couple of long distance road trips. I am going to take the car down to Melbourne, and I'm hoping to do some snow driving in it as well. So that's going to require doing things like getting to somewhere like Lithgow over the Blue Mountains here in New South Wales, charging using one of the public chargers out that way, and then seeing how the dual motor all-wheel drive system, electric all-wheel drive, works in snow. Because even though this is made in China, it is still a Swedish engineered and developed vehicle, a lot in common with Volvo. It uses the same CMA platform as the Volvo XC40, for instance. So I want to see how it performs on snow and ice, basically. So those are my plans, but I'm keen to take your requests. If you've got any questions you want me to answer, anything you want me to specifically do with the Polestar 2 to test on your behalf, let me know down below in the comments, and I will make my best efforts to do so. So I've been driving for about 500 Ks so far in the Polestar 2. I'm happy to give you some early first impressions, but this is just my intro video. I'm more keen to hear from you and what you'd like me to do on your behalf with this vehicle. But my initial impression is that I might have got the interior upholstery spec a bit wrong. So I already told you why I went for the charcoal weave tech to test out the premium vegan interior option in this car. My first impression in summer is that it is hot. This thing has real thermal insulating properties, probably fantastic in a Swedish winter. But in hot Australia, this thing really locks in the heat and warms you up even when the seat heaters are turned off. And interestingly, Polestar Australia added quite late in the piece the option of barley or kind of beige coloured Napa leather with seat coolers. And I happen to think that that might have been the way to go. But as the months roll on, we are moving into winter here in Australia. I'll probably start enjoying these a lot more. I do like the electric adjustment in the seat though. The driving position in this car is really good. You sit low, and I like the fact the Polestar 2 is kind of like a sedan or a sportback with an opening hatchback. That way it doesn't look like just yet another electric SUV. I think it looks quite slick. I like the design of the vehicle. I'm glad I went for the Harman Kardon, which I've tuned to a point where I think it sounds pretty good. And the Google infotainment system. This was the first car to get an Android infotainment system. I am starting to come to grips to it. The Google Assistant feature is really nice. Like, it always gets your satellite navigation direction correct. And you've got Google Maps based navigation, which is cool, but no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto at all, let alone wireless. You just don't get any. And I don't love the fact that, just like on new Volvos, you can only get a map or your trip information on the screen in front of you. There's no media, there's no customization. It's really overly simplistic, I reckon. Now, in terms of driving, my main impression so far is that this vehicle has a lot of power and it really gets a move on. It's got intuitive regen braking with multiple modes. I'm teaching myself to like regen braking. It's never been my favorite feature before. But the manually adjustable Erlens dampers, my God, the front ones are easy to adjust. So getting them to a supple setting was the work of a few minutes. The rear ones, because of a lack of clearance between the huge 20-inch wheels and tires and the damper itself, very, very difficult to do. Johnny Law from our road testing team was able to adjust them but accidentally took them to maximum firmness. I then had to live with that for like 2 weeks, and it was so out of sync, the front and rears, as you'd expect. But just recently, we jacked the car up, managed to get clearance under there, adjust the rear dampers down to maximum suppleness, and now the ride is transformed. Controlled, but still relatively comfortable, and that's where I think I'm going to leave it, because even at the maximum comfort end of the spectrum on the Erlens, it's still pretty sporty, pretty firm, but finally, it's now livable. So those are my first impressions of my new Polestar 2 long-termer. Do let me know down below in the comments if you've got any feedback, ideas, or suggestions. Happy to do my best to act on them. But I think this is going to be an interesting half year with one of the more interesting vehicles to launch here in Australia in 2022, going head-to-head with the Tesla Model 3. So those are my impressions. Let me know what you reckon. Subscribe button's down below the video. Hit that, hit the notification bell. And as always, thanks for watching Chasing Cars.